Well, thank you for letting us, as we say, talk story with you a bit. And we're doing a series called Climbing Out of Debt. We've been actually for the past 2 years doing something called Project Economy, trying to give people tips on just handling everything that's happening in the economy. And we've had a lot of layoffs and everything here in the islands as well, and it's mirroring the rest of the country and seeing foreclosures and so forth going on. And so one of the stories we did was we followed someone going through your Financial Peace University program at one of the churches, and so it's kind of great to be able to sit down and talk to you a little bit about that and some of your thoughts. So I guess if we could get started on this, what do you think is what's the biggest problem that we've gotten into? What got us into these credit problems that we're seeing here today?
Well, I think there's so many different problems, and I guess really they're the symptoms. And I think the biggest problem is we just weren't paying attention. You know, it seemed like everything's going okay, so I can afford this couch. Everything's going okay, so I can afford this car. Everything's going okay, so I can afford this house. But when you put them together, uh-oh, everything's not going okay. And all it was we weren't paying attention holistically to the whole picture of our life. And if we're intentional, if we do things on purpose, if we happen to things with money, we can turn around some of our stupid mistakes, and we've all made them.
Well, that's the thing that's interesting about watching your program is you've been there.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, I'm afraid. I've got a PhD in DUMB. We made a lot of money when we first got married, starting from nothing way back when we were 20-something years old, and the banks got sold to another bank. I had a bunch of real estate. They called our notes, and we spent the next 2.5 years of our life losing everything we owned. So I know what it's like to be foreclosed on. I know what it's like to not be able to pay your bills. I know what it's like for your marriage to be hanging on by a thread because of the financial stress. Been there, done that. It's no fun, and I don't ever want to go back there again. So that's why we started teaching this stuff.
A lot of when I look at what you're teaching, a lot of it is common sense.
It is absolutely common sense, and Benjamin Franklin said nothing is less common than common sense. It's so marketable that this year we will have our 1,000,000th family go through Financial Peace University. So it is common sense, but you know what we discovered is personal finance is really about 80% behavior. It's only about 20% head knowledge. The problem with my money is this idiot in my mirror, the guy I shave with. If I can get this guy to behave, he can be skinny and rich. I know what to do, you know what to do, we just don't do it. And so what we do is we make you modify your behavior as well as tickling your brain with some new facts.
1 million people going through it, that's pretty amazing. How do you deal with people, like, for instance, here in Hawaii, our state workers are starting to be furloughed, even our school teachers furloughed. I guess, what do you do in suggesting how families cope through still paying their bills when they've been furloughed?
It's a tough time when folks are facing those kinds of things. And really there's, you know, as you said, it's only common sense. There's only two sides to this equation, the income side and the outgo side. And when the income side's messed up, then we got to mess up the outgo side. And so what you've got to do then is you have to be very, very, very careful to prioritize. And what ends up happening, sadly, is when people get stressed, they do exactly the wrong things. They keep MasterCard and Visa current, and then they don't have any money for food. And so let's do this in the right order. The first thing you buy if you're struggling with money is food. The second thing you buy is lights and water. The third thing you buy is shelter. The fourth thing you buy is transportation. You didn't hear MasterCard on that list, and you didn't hear student loan on that list. Now, am I saying not pay your bills? If you can't pay them, I'm saying don't pay them and feed your family first, and then pay them as quickly as you can get the income back up. So hopefully it's a temporary thing if you're furloughed. Usually that's what that entails. And if it's not, then if it's an unstable career, then you've got to start searching out other ways to make an income for your family. No,
that's simply true. I guess one of the things that we're looking at when we look through your program is one of the nights of the Financial Peace University was when they cut their credit cards. That's got to be a pretty trying thing for people.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, it's so emotional, and isn't it funny that we have emotionally decided we're like Linus with his little blanket on Charlie Brown with these stupid pieces of plastic. This represents security. I mean, how bizarre is that? Really what that says is the bank has done a fabulous job at selling us. It says, gosh, you know, if you'll worship at the altar of the great Fico, if you'll keep the great Fico happy and, you know, and take care of his little angels, MasterCard and Visa, then everything's going to be okay in your life. And the reality is that Fico is not an indication of winning financially. It's an indication you borrowed a lot of money and paid it back. That's all it says. And MasterCard and Visa don't bring your security. You know, I've sat and counseled with thousands of millionaires. I've never met a millionaire who said, Dave, you know, I made all my money with my Discover points.
You talk about the FICO score, and I know your philosophy on buying a house and not necessarily needing credit. How can you, I guess, parlay that into here in Hawaii, where the average house is running at $600,000, and that's not even a big house, and the average condo is running at $350,000? I mean, is it a different demon here in the islands with our economy and our house prices when it comes to needing good credit?
No, it really isn't, because good credit should not allow you to buy a home you can't afford. And so if you can't afford to pay the payments on $350,000, then that says you can't afford to be a homeowner, or you can't afford to live in the islands with the income you're producing. And so a FICO score does not say that you have an income that does that. All it says is that you've borrowed money and paid it back a lot. The elements, the actual algorithm that creates the FICO score, just says it's your history on borrowing money and paying money back. And so that doesn't make you be able to pay a $3,000 house payment if you make $4,000 a month. You just can't do that. It's mathematically impossible. So you still, even though the mortgage companies have abandoned the traditional underwriting process, you still have to use good judgment, good common sense when taking out a mortgage that is a reasonable amount on a 15-year fixed as a percentage of your take-home pay. And if your take-home pay is not enough to buy a home in the islands, then you've got to decide if the islands are where you're supposed to be or if you're going to be a renter. Either one's okay with me, but don't be buying a home and going, well, it's the only way you can do it here is go bankrupt. That's silly.
But if you go through your program, let's say you are challenged financially, and you go through the program and you get rid of the credit cards, and I know along with cutting up the credit cards, you say cancel the accounts. What if you're trying to get that house later?
Well, you don't have to have a credit score to get a house. That's the big misnomer. A lot of mortgage companies have become very, very lazy, and the only way they do write a mortgage is with a credit score lending. But there are still mortgage companies that do what we call manual underwriting, which means they actually look at the human being and see if they make enough money. That's what we used to do back in the old days in the real estate business, is we actually said, okay, here's their income, here's their payment. You know, do these things match? Is this a good idea? And we used some thought in the process of underwriting rather than went, ooh, magic number, that says it all. It doesn't say it all. And the sad thing is the FICO score will actually qualify you for a lot more mortgage than you can afford to pay. So if you do away with all borrowing, and so your FICO score, what it'll do is it'll end up going like mine has to zero, then you're not going to be borrowing money. You're going to be paying cash for everything except possibly a home, and then you look for a mortgage company that'll do manual underwriting, which zero is a good credit score then.
For people out there who are looking at doing that, I mean, do you call the mortgage company and ask them if they do that type of underwriting?
Sure, you have to ask them if they do lending other than just FICO score lending, because some of them don't.
All right. If somebody out there wants to get out of debt right now, I guess could you give me the first 3 steps that you would say are like primary for anyone, no matter if they owe just a little or they owe a lot?
Well, the first step to getting out of debt is not borrowing anymore. You cannot get out of a hole while you're digging out the bottom. And so you do need to chop up those credit cards. You do need to make a decision that we're not borrowing anymore. No matter what happens, we're going to work it out without debt. And it's hard to do. But living with a life of debt is hard to do, too, because it takes all your money. All the money comes in, all the money goes out, only the names are changed to protect the innocent. So step 1 is commit to no more borrowing. Step 2 is you've got to get a healthy level of anger going, a passion. If you just kind of say, this is an academic, intellectual exercise, it won't work. It won't work. You got to get ticked off. You got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Tired of supporting MasterCard, Sallie Mae, and General Motors as your only way of living. I make all this money, and I have nothing left to show for all this hard work except a bunch of paid bills. Yuck. I don't want to live that way. Get a healthy level of disgust, and that disgust will allow you to sacrifice deeply for a short period of time where you go crazy. You sell so much stuff the kids think they're next. You name the dog eBay and put the cat on Craigslist. Baby, you bust into this thing. And when you get that kind of thing going, then you're able to make the numbers work. And the third step is you use the debt snowball. And that's listing your debts smallest to largest, pay minimum payments on everything but the little one, and attack the smallest debt, regardless of the interest rate, with a vengeance. As soon as that debt's gone, attack the next one down. As soon as that debt's gone, attack the next one down. And every time that snowball rolls over and you've paid off some more debt, that payment that's not there anymore is used to get on the next deal, and get on the next one, and get on the next one. And you work your way right down that list until you're completely done everything but the house. Now we do it highest, or we do it lowest balance to largest balance, regardless of the interest rate. And sometimes people say, well, you should pay off the highest interest rate first. That's mathematically correct. Well, if we were doing math, we wouldn't really have credit card debt.
It gives you those little, I guess it's a good feeling because you're paying off something achievable.
Absolutely. I ran 3 miles this morning. I lifted and I sat in the steam shower. Why'd I go through all of that? Well, if I gained weight at the end of the week after doing that all week long, I'm not going to be really excited about this plan. You know, I don't want to go through all this sacrifice just to be able to do that. I mean, just to be able to gain weight. But if I look up and I go, hey, 2 pounds lighter, you know, feeling a little better, ready for my marathon, all this kind of stuff. I'm feeling progress, I'm getting traction, then I'll stay with the plan. And money's no different because it's about behavior modification.
A couple other questions that deal with what's going on in our economy here. Our foreclosure rates are going up. Do you think people should go into a debt management program or something to avoid foreclosure?
Well, I think if you're facing a foreclosure, you've got to assess why you're facing the foreclosure. What changed? What happened? I mean, did you lose your income? If you lost your income, maybe maybe 2 of you were working, 1 of you's lost their job. Unless you get that other job back, there's not a debt management thing in the world that's going to cut your payment in half. There's no such thing. And so then you've got to look at, gosh, do I get this house sold before I lose it? Well, I owe more on it than it's worth. Then you're looking at a short sale. That means you sell a home short of enough to pay it off. And the mortgage company agrees to accept the lesser amount for the payment, and it gets you out of the home. Now, a short sale is a ding on your credit, but nothing like a foreclosure. A foreclosure is dropping an atom bomb on your credit. Now, if you're behind on your mortgage for some other reason, like you had lost a job, now you've got the job back, now all we got to do is get caught up. That's when your mortgage modification programs or forbearances, sometimes they're called, where you pay like a payment and a half or something till you catch up and you don't get any further behind, and you work out a game plan with them. Sometimes in certain mortgages they'll roll it to the end of the loan. But if you do that only to return to not being able to pay a payment again this month because you didn't really fix the overall situation, well, you wasted your time and you put them to a lot of trouble. So assess whether or not you're really going to be able to keep the home, and that's an emotional thing to make that decision. But the good news is it's just a house. A home is where the heart is.
That's true, simply true. Out of the million people that have gone through Financial Peace and the other programs that you offer, what's the worst, worst case that you've seen come through your program?
The worst cases we see are not the ones that we can necessarily remember the numbers. I mean, we've had lots and lots of people I've met over the years with $200,000 or $300,000 or even $400,000 with credit card debt alone. I mean, I've seen, you know, handfuls of those over the years come through at different things, which are just bizarre amounts. I mean, it's just crazy. The Jerry Springer of finance, you know, kind of stuff. It's just nutso. But really, those aren't the ones that stick in your mind. The ones that stick in my mind are the ones that have lost their hope. They just really don't believe they can win anymore. And they just kind of lay down, they just quit. And those are the sad ones. Because, you know, especially for me being a teacher, being a person, you know, a motivational speaker, I'm trying to get people to believe they can win again. And you can win. It's just that where you are at a given moment may really be a bad place. But you've got to remember that's a snapshot and your life is a film strip. What's happening today, tomorrow is either going to be worse or be better. It's not ever going to be exactly the same. And so you've always got this chance that tomorrow, you know, it's kind of a little Orphan Annie idea, the sun will come out tomorrow. And it really does. That's not Pollyanna because, you know, really, if you both lost your jobs, you pretty much hit rock bottom. And from here, where's it going to go? It's going to get better. You know, you're going through a tough time right now, though. So the saddest ones are the people who won't continue to fight or somehow can't find it in their spirit to get up and fight one more day.
Yeah, that would be. I guess with a million people, it's been good for you in your economy. You got a lot of.
Well, they didn't all come through this year,
Yeah.
but we're actually below projections a little bit. And so you would think teaching people that are hurting with money about money would go up when there's a lot more hurting people. But the reality is our sales are below projections. We've had growth, but they're less growth than we did last year. So. You know, we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to have success, we're continuing to help people everywhere, but it's not exactly been a get-rich-quick scheme for us either.
What do you get out of it besides, obviously, the monetary gains?
I get the letters and the emails and the people that call me, and I run into them at airports, and they say, Dave, you know, we were going through this course, and my wife and I, we didn't even realize that we'd quit communicating, and you probably saved our marriage by making us do a budget together. Or Dave, you know, I had $60,000 in debt, and I'd just about given up hope, and just by seeing a game plan, and there was a light at the end of the tunnel that won an oncoming train. I took 3 jobs, we sold off 2 of the cars, and you know, we're completely debt-free, and we're able to rebuild now and get some other cars and get some other stuff and pay for it, and we'll never be back in that mess again. Thank you, you changed my family tree. I get those all day long, and so, man, I'm just got a great life.
Do you have any credit cards at all?
No. I haven't had a credit card in 20 years. We've got 2 debit cards. I have a debit card on my business and one on my personal account. And so I can do anything you can do with a credit card, given that there's money in those accounts. And, you know, except go in debt. I can't go in debt with those.
That was one of the things that you mentioned, that you can do just about anything with a debit card. And I was surprised when you said you could rent a car. Is that pretty much with every company, or you've got to kind of look for the company that allow you to do something like that?
You know, when the debit cards first came out, Hertz and Avis and a couple of the majors did not take them. And when they did first start taking them, they were a pain in the butt. They'd hold a bunch of money back on them. But it's become so commonplace now. There's more debit card transactions this year for the first time than there are credit card transactions. And so it's been so normalized in the marketplace that there's very, very few merchants that are so backward that they don't take the debit card and treat it just like a credit card, because it runs through the same system Visa runs through. And it doesn't hurt the merchant at all. They get priced the same. Everything works exactly the same with it. So, yeah, I mean, there may be one rental car company or something, but we rent from all the majors. I travel a lot. I've never gone up to a hotel in the last 5 years or so that they wouldn't take it. Anywhere from really nice stuff to not so nice stuff, depending on where we're going. But, you know, I just don't run into it anymore. Now, years ago when they first came out, there was a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you see it encouraging that, like you said, that debit cards are now used more than credit cards?
Well, I think it's a great trend. I don't think it's totally explained by the credit card going out of vogue. It's explained by the check going out of vogue. People used to, you'd see them in buying a shirt and they were writing a check. You almost never see that now. They now will use the credit card, or use the debit card or credit card. The same thing's true at the grocery store. Just 10 years ago, it was unthinkable that you would buy fast food or groceries with a piece of plastic, and now it's standard operating procedure. I mean, you see people buying a box of gum at the market with, you know, $1 or something with their debit card now. It's crazy. So the check has just about been done away with, except for sitting at home and writing your bills. And I think that's the big issue there. And then add to that this slowing in the economy, and people kind of put the brakes on and went, whoa, I'm not going into debt. I'm going to go to the debit card. And that's shifted. That's been the final push. And I think people are waking up overall and realizing that the credit cards are ripping people off. They're tired of being beat up and abused by these companies, and they're just saying enough. I am fairly certain that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the credit card become the cigarette of the financial world.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dave, for talking to us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and interesting reading about your programs.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor to be with you.
All right. Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha.